The stars looked different 50 years ago. Back then, they belonged to someone else. Commander Minho Park stood at the observation deck of the abandoned orbital station, watching Earth turn slowly below. The blue marble looked peaceful from up here, but he knew better. Down there, cities still bore the scars of the final war that had sealed humanity's fate. He remembered the day the Velthons came with their ultimatum. Their ships had appeared over every major city like silver tears in the sky. The message was simple and cold. Humanity had 1 year to prove they deserved to stay in the galactic community. 1 year to stop fighting each other and start acting like civilized beings. The aliens had been watching for 300 years. They had given humans advanced technology, clean energy, and the secrets of space travel. They had hoped humanity would grow beyond their primitive instincts. Instead, humans used the gifts to build better weapons and fight bigger wars. "Sir, the communication array is failing again," Lieutenant So Young Kim reported from behind him. Her voice echoed in the empty corridor. Most of the station's crew had evacuated months ago when the alien tech started shutting down. Minho nodded, without turning around. Everything was failing now. The fusion reactors that had powered Earth's cities for 2 centuries were going dark one by one. The medical devices that had cured cancer and regrown limbs had stopped working. Even the food synthesizers that had ended hunger were nothing more than expensive metal boxes now. The aliens had built kill switches into everything. When they decided humanity was hopeless, they simply turned off the technology and left. No goodbyes. No second chances, just silence where their guidance used to be. "How long do we have?" Minho asked. "The backup power will last another week, maybe 2 if we shut down non-essential systems." "And then?" So Young was quiet for a moment. "Then we're on our own, sir, completely." Minho finally turned away from the window. The lieutenant was young, maybe 25, with the kind of determination that reminded him why humans might actually survive this. She had volunteered to stay when everyone else ran. She was one of maybe 1,000 people scattered across the dying orbital platforms trying to salvage what they could before it all went dark. Down on Earth, things were even worse. Without alien technology, the carefully balanced ecosystem of modern civilization was collapsing. Transportation networks had failed. Communication systems were dead. Billions of people were learning to live like their ancestors again, but without the knowledge their ancestors had possessed. The irony was bitter. Humanity had been given the stars, and they had used them to nearly destroy their own world. Now they were being sent back to the Stone Age as punishment. "What are you working on?" Minho asked, noticing the data pad in So Young's hands. She held it up, showing him screens full of alien code and human annotations. "Dr. Jin Woo Lee thinks there might be a way to keep some of the technology working. He says the alien systems have learning protocols that might be adaptable." "Adaptable how?" "Well, the aliens designed everything to work with their minds. Their thoughts are very organized, very logical. But maybe that's not the only way." Minho raised an eyebrow. "Go on." "Human thoughts are messy, chaotic. The aliens always said that was our weakness, but Dr. Lee thinks it might actually be our strength. He believes human brains might interface with the technology differently. Maybe even better." It was a crazy idea, the kind of desperate theory that only made sense when you had nothing left to lose. But Minho had seen enough desperate theories prove true during the war to keep an open mind. Where is Dr. Lee now? Research Lab 7, trying to jury-rig a neural interface before the power dies completely. Minho started walking toward the lab, and So Young fell into step beside him. Their footsteps echoed in the empty corridors that had once bustled with alien advisors and human technicians working together. Now it was just ghosts and failing lights. "Sir, do you really think we can do this? Survive without them?" Minho thought about that question. 50 years from now, would anyone remember the aliens who had abandoned them? Would children learn about the time when the stars belonged to others? Or would they grow up in a world where humans had claimed the sky for themselves? "I think," he said slowly, "that the aliens made a mistake. They think abandoning us will teach us a lesson. They think we'll collapse and prove them right. And if we don't collapse? Minho smiled for the first time in months. Then they're going to be very surprised. The lights flickered overhead, a reminder that time was running out. But in that moment, walking through the dying station with a young officer who refused to give up, Minho felt something he hadn't felt since the abandonment began. Hope. The aliens had taken their gifts and gone home. They thought the story was over, but Minho suspected they had just written the prologue to something much bigger, something that would make them regret the day they decided humanity wasn't worth their time. The stars looked different now. Soon, they might belong to someone new. 20 years had passed since the lights went out. Dr. Jinwoo Lee rubbed his tired eyes and stared at the strange device humming on his laboratory table. The basement lab smelled of burnt circuits and coffee that had been reheated too many times. Above ground, Seoul looked nothing like the gleaming city it once was, but down here in the underground research facility, something amazing was happening. Neural interface crown sat on the table like a metal spider made of wires and salvaged alien components. Jinwoo had spent 5 years building it from scraps of dead technology that the aliens had left behind. Most people thought he was crazy. The government barely had enough resources to keep the lights on, yet here he was trying to make alien machines work again. "Are you sure about this?" asked Hyejin Choi, the test pilot who had volunteered for today's experiment. She was small and tough, with hands that never stopped moving and eyes that missed nothing. Before the abandonment, she had flown cargo, ships between Earth and the Moon. Now she flew patched-together aircraft that ran on biofuel and prayer. "No," Jinwoo admitted honestly. "I'm not sure about anything, but we've tested it on the simulation 100 times. Your brain patterns are perfect for this." That was the discovery that had changed everything. 3 years ago, Jinwoo had found something the aliens had missed. They had designed their technology to work with minds that thought in perfect patterns. Logical, organized, predictable. The kind of thinking that built stable civilizations and avoided wars. But human minds were different. Chaotic, creative, unpredictable. The aliens had seen this as a flaw that needed to be fixed. Jinwoo had realized it might be a superpower. "The alien flight computers expect commands to come in specific sequences," he explained as Hyejin sat down and picked up the neural crown. "They're programmed to reject anything that doesn't match their thought patterns, but I think I've found a way around that. By being more human instead of less human?" "Exactly." The test ship sat in the hangar next to the lab. It had once been a beautiful Velthan scout craft, all smooth curves and silver metal. Now it looked like a metal beast that had been torn apart and rebuilt by someone who cared more about function than beauty. Human-made components stuck out at odd angles. The engine had been replaced with something that Jinwoo had cobbled together from Earth materials and alien energy cores. Engineer Dong-Hyun Yoon emerged from under the ship, oil stains on his coveralls and a satisfied grin on his face. "She's ready to fly? Probably, maybe. Don't ask me what will happen if you push it too hard." "That's encouraging," Hyejin said dryly, but she was already putting on the neural crown. The metal felt cold against her skin, and she could feel tiny electrical signals starting to connect with her thoughts. Jinwoo monitored the readings on his instruments. "Brain activity looks good. The interface is syncing with your neural patterns. How do you feel?" "Strange. Like I can hear something humming in the back of my mind." Hyejin closed her eyes and concentrated. "It's like the ship is trying to talk to me, but in a language I don't understand. Don't try to understand it, just feel it." That was the secret Jinwoo had discovered. The aliens had approached their technology like a math problem to be solved. Humans needed to approach it like music to be played. Not with logic, but with instinct. Hyejin walked toward the ship, still wearing the neural crown. The moment she stepped inside the cockpit, something changed. The dead alien controls began to glow with soft blue light. Systems that had been silent for 20 years started to whisper back to life. "Jinwoo," she called out, excitement creeping into her voice. It's working. I can feel the ship's systems responding to me. Through the hangar's open doors, a small crowd had gathered. Word of the experiment had spread despite Jinwoo's attempts to keep it secret. Workers, scientists, and government officials all watched as the impossible happened. The alien ship lifted slowly off the ground, smooth and silent as the day it was built. But this was different from how aliens flew. Heejin didn't follow the careful planned flight paths that alien pilots used. Instead, she moved the ship like she was dancing, spinning and diving in patterns that looked random, but felt perfectly right. The ship responded to her emotions, her instincts, her very human way of seeing the world. She's going 3 times faster than the original specifications, Dong-hyun reported, watching his instruments in amazement. The alien engineers said these ships couldn't handle those kinds of forces. The alien engineers were wrong, Jinwoo replied, watching Heejin fly loops around the hangar. They built these ships to be safe and predictable. Heejin is flying it like it's alive. After 10 minutes, Heejin brought the ship down for a perfect landing. She removed the neural crown, her face flushed with excitement and something that looked like joy. That was incredible, she gasped. It's like the ship wanted to fly that way all along, but nobody ever asked it to. Jinwoo smiled. For the first time since the abandonment, he felt hope. Real hope. The aliens had left behind thousands of broken machines across Earth. With this discovery, those machines might not be broken after all. They might just be waiting for the right kind of mind to wake them up. Outside, people were already talking. Word would spread quickly. Soon, everyone would know that humans had found a way to make alien technology work again. The age of abandonment was ending. The age of human innovation was about to begin. 30 years after the abandonment, the pirates came to Earth expecting easy prey. They were very wrong. Captain Jae-sung Kang watched the alien ships appear on his radar screen like angry red dots, 6 heavy cruisers and twice as many fighters, all bearing the skull markings of the Crimson Fleet. These weren't the civilized aliens who had once guided humanity. These were the scavengers who fed on weak worlds, taking whatever they wanted, and leaving destruction behind. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, reported Communications Officer Min Seo Park from her station on the bridge. Standard pirate demands: surrender all valuable resources or face bombardment. Jae-sung almost laughed. The pirates had no idea what they were dealing with. Earth wasn't the helpless world it had been 3 decades ago. The planet bristled with defense platforms built from salvaged alien technology and human ingenuity. More importantly, it was protected by ships that looked like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Signal the Terran Strike Force, Jae-sung ordered. Time to show our guest what human hospitality looks like. The Iron Phoenix and her sister ships were ugly by alien standards. Where alien vessels were smooth and graceful, human ships looked like flying fortresses made of angles and armor plating. They were built from whatever materials Earth could provide, welded together with determination and decorated with weapons that shouldn't work, but absolutely did. Pilot Yoonji Nam launched from the Phoenix in her custom fighter craft. Like all human pilots, she had learned to fly using the neural interface technology that Dr. Jinwoo Lee had perfected years ago. But where the early pilots had simply copied alien flight patterns, Yoonji's generation had learned to think like predators. "Bogies incoming," she reported over the comm, her voice calm despite the adrenaline pumping through her veins. "Looks like they brought the whole family reunion." The pirate fighters moved in perfect formation, following attack patterns that had worked against peaceful merchant ships and barely defended colonies. They expected their targets to either run away or surrender. They did not expect Earth's defenders to charge straight at them with weapons blazing. Yoonji's fighter twisted through space in ways that made alien pilots sick just watching. She flew by instinct and emotion, using the chaos of human thought to confuse enemy targeting systems. Her ship's engines screamed as she pushed them far beyond their safety limits, something no alien pilot would ever risk. "Fox 1, she called out, launching a missile that had been built in an underground factory in Busan. The weapon looked crude compared to alien ordnance, but it contained something the pirates had never encountered: human creativity applied. to the art of destruction. The missile didn't just explode. It released a cloud of micro-drones that swarmed over the pirate fighter like angry metal bees, tearing apart hull plating and severing control cables. The elegant alien ship spun out of control and crashed into an asteroid. "What was that?" demanded the pirate fleet commander over the open channel. His voice carried a note of confusion that Jae-sung found deeply satisfying. "That," Jae-sung replied calmly, "was a human saying hello." The space battle that followed would be talked about in alien bars and military academies for decades to come. The pirates had superior numbers and more advanced technology, but they had never faced an enemy that refused to follow the rules of civilized warfare. Human ships didn't retreat when damaged. They rammed enemy vessels or used their dying moments to launch boarding pods full of Marines who fought with tools that looked like they belonged in a garage. Human pilots didn't surrender when outnumbered. They used their ships as weapons, turning even the smallest fighter into a guided missile if necessary. Engineer Dong Hyun-yoon, now an admiral commanding the Defiance Edge, showed the pirates something they had never seen before: a capital ship that could move like a fighter. His massive vessel danced between enemy fire, its human crew working in harmony with jury-rigged alien systems to perform maneuvers that should have torn the ship apart. "Ramming speed," Dong Hyun ordered when a pirate cruiser tried to flee. "Sir, that will destroy both ships," his tactical officer warned. "Not if we do it right." The Defiance Edge struck the pirate cruiser at precisely the right angle and speed to disable it without destroying either vessel. Marines swarmed aboard before the enemy crew could recover, capturing advanced technology and intelligence that would make Earth's next generation of ships even more dangerous. Within 6 hours, the Crimson Fleet was completely destroyed or captured. Not a single human ship was lost, though several looked like they needed major repairs and probably a few prayers. "Send a message to their base," Jae-sung ordered as his crew celebrated around him. "Tell them Earth is under new management. Any pirates who want to test our defenses are welcome to try." As word of the victory spread through the underground networks of smugglers and raiders, Earth's reputation began to change. The abandoned world had become something new, a place where predators went to die. Yoonji Nam landed her battered fighter on the Phoenix and removed her helmet, grinning at the scorch marks on her cockpit. "Not bad for abandoned primitives," she said to her ground crew. Her crew chief laughed. "Wait until they see what we're building next." In hidden shipyards across Earth, new vessels were taking shape, bigger, meaner, and more human than ever before. The Sky Hunters were about to become Sky Conquerors. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you abandoned predators and expected them to stay tame. 45 years after the abandonment, the Velthan Empire was losing a war they didn't understand how to fight. Admiral Sung-ho Bae stood in the command center of the Thunderstrike, watching the tactical display show another Velthan colony requesting immediate evacuation. The aliens who had once dismissed humans as chaotic primitives were now running from human expansion across 3 star systems. "Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Velthan homeworld," reported Lieutenant Kyung-ho-sun, his voice tight with barely contained excitement. "It's from Emperor Veltar himself." Sung-ho almost smiled. 5 years ago, the Emperor wouldn't have acknowledged humanity's existence. Now he was calling personally, probably to beg for mercy or negotiate a treaty. How things had changed. The holographic image of the Velthan Emperor appeared in the center of the command deck. He was tall and graceful, with silver skin that seemed to glow in the dim light of his throne room. His large eyes held the kind of ancient wisdom that had once made humans feel small and primitive. Now they just looked tired and desperate. "Admiral Bae," the Emperor said, his voice carrying the musical quality that all Velthans possessed. "I request an immediate ceasefire. We must discuss the future of our territories." "Your territories?" Sung-ho raised an eyebrow. "I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding, Your Majesty. Those systems belong to whoever can hold them. Right now, that appears to be us." The truth was simple and brutal. Human ships were faster, stronger, and more adaptable than anything the Velthans had built. More importantly, human crews fought with a desperation and creativity that made aliens uncomfortable. They didn't follow the civilized rules of galactic warfare. They made up new rules as they went along. Captain Yuri Shin's voice crackled over the comm from her ship, the Stormcaller. "Admiral, the Velthon fleet is moving to intercept us at the Kepler Junction. Looks like they want to make a stand." Xiong-Ho studied the tactical display. The Velthans had positioned their ships in a perfect defensive formation, exactly as their military doctrine required. It was textbook strategy that would have been impossible to break using conventional tactics. Unfortunately for them, humans had stopped using conventional tactics years ago. "Yuri, take your squadron around the backside of the gas giant. Use the radiation to mask your approach. When they're focused on our main fleet, hit them from their blind spot." "Copy that, Admiral." Stormcaller out. The plan was simple, dangerous, and exactly the kind of thing that gave alien commanders nightmares. Human ships could handle radiation levels that would kill alien crews. They could make hyperspace jumps that aliens considered suicidal. Most importantly, they could coordinate complex attacks using the chaotic, intuitive communication style that had once been seen as humanity's greatest weakness. 20 minutes later, the battle began. The Velthan ships opened fire with their elegant energy weapons, beams of pure light that could slice through most armor like paper. But human ships weren't built to be elegant. They were built to absorb punishment and keep fighting. The Thunderstrike took several direct hits that would have disabled any alien vessel. Instead, damage control teams rerouted power, sealed hull breaches with emergency foam, and kept the Kyo ship fighting. The Velthan admiral probably couldn't understand how a ship with half its systems damaged could still be dangerous. That's when Yuri's squadron appeared behind the Velthan fleet like ghosts emerging from the radiation storm. "Surprise?" Yuri's voice came over the comm, calm and deadly. Her ships opened fire with weapons that looked like they had been built in a junkyard, but hit with the force of falling stars. The Velthan formation collapsed within minutes. Their ships were designed for civilized warfare between honorable opponents, who followed established rules. They couldn't adapt to enemies who used damaged ships as weapons, who turned retreat into ambush, who fought like every battle might be their last. "Admiral," came a panicked transmission from the Velthon flagship. "We surrender, please, we surrender." Xiong-Ho looked at the display showing the remaining Velthon ships, their weapons powered down, and their crews probably praying to whatever gods Velthans believed in. He felt no satisfaction in the victory. These weren't the aliens who had abandoned humanity. Those had been scientists and philosophers. These were just soldiers following orders. "Accepted," he said simply. "Prepare to be boarded." Later, as human marines secured the captured ships and began the process of reverse engineering yet more alien technology, Xiong-Ho received another transmission from the Velthan homeworld. "Admiral Bay," the Emperor said, his voice much quieter now. "Perhaps we were hasty in our judgment of humanity. We would like to discuss renegotiating your species' status in the galactic community." Xiong-Ho looked out at the stars that had once belonged to others. Human ships patrolled systems that had been Velthan for thousands of years. Human colonies were being established on worlds that had never seen chaos or creativity, or the beautiful, terrifying mess of human civilization. "Your Majesty," he said finally, "we appreciate the offer, but we're not interested in renegotiating anything. You abandoned us when we needed guidance. Now we don't need guidance anymore." He paused to let that sink in. "We are the storm coming, for your stars. And we're just getting started." The transmission ended, leaving Xiong-Ho alone with his thoughts and the vast display of space that humanity was claiming one system at a time. The abandoned children had grown up, and they were taking over the galaxy. 50 years after the abandonment, Fleet Commander Tay Minot stood on the bridge of the Retribution and watched the galaxy burn. Not literally, of course. The stars still shone as they always had, but the old order was dying, and in its place, something new was being born. Something human. The Retribution was the largest warship ever built by human hands. It stretched for 2 kilometers. A massive fusion of salvaged alien technology and human engineering that looked like a flying city made of steel and determination. Its hull was scarred from 100 battles, and its weapon systems had been upgraded so many times that the original alien designers would have had nightmares just looking at the blueprints. "Sir, we're receiving a priority distress signal," reported Communications Officer Hae-Young Kim, her voice cutting through the quiet hum of the bridge. "It's coming from the Karathi homeworld." Taemin raised an eyebrow. The Karathi were the crystalline beings who had voted most strongly for humanity's abandonment 5 decades ago. They had called humans chaotic disease and evolutionary mistake in their final judgment. Now they were asking for help. "Put it through," he ordered. The message appeared on the main screen, transmitted through the old alien communication networks that humans now controlled. The speaker was a Karathi elder, his crystal body flickering with distressed light patterns. Behind him, Taemin could see the burning remains of what had once been a beautiful city. "People of Earth," the elder said, his voice carrying harmonics that made the translation software struggle. "We know we have no right to ask this. We know what we did to you, but our worlds are under attack by something from the dark space beyond. The Rim. Our defenses are failing. Our people are dying. We were wrong about you. Please help us." The message ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Several officers turned to look at Taemin, waiting for his decision. Some of them had been alive during the abandonment. They remembered the hunger and the fear when the lights went out. They remembered being told they were failures who didn't deserve to join the galactic community. "Orders, sir?" asked Captain Boram Lee, his tactical officer. Taemin studied the star charts. The Karathi homeworld was 3 days away at maximum hyperspace velocity. The enemy force was described as entities from beyond known space, which could mean anything from rogue aliens to something much worse. "Signal the fleet," he said finally. "All ships prepare for hyperspace jump. We're going to Karathi space." "Sir?" Captain Lee looked surprised. "They abandoned us. They called us primitives." "Yes, they did." Taemin turned to face his crew. "But we're not them. We don't abandon people who need help, even if they're people who once abandoned us." The human fleet that jumped to hyperspace was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. 200 ships of every size and description, from massive carriers to small fighters, all bearing the blue and white colors of the Terran Federation. They were crewed by the descendants of the people who had been left to die in the darkness 50 years ago. When they emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Karathi system, they found hell waiting for them. The enemy ships were unlike anything in the galactic databases. They were black as space itself, with designs that hurt to look at directly. They moved in formations that made no sense, attacking the crystalline cities of the Karathi with weapons that seemed to eat light itself. "Analysis?" Taemin asked. "Unknown technology," reported Science Officer Min-Jung Park. "Energy signatures don't match anything in our records. They're not from this galaxy." Pilot Sang-Woo Cho launched from the Retribution in his fighter, leading a squadron of Earth's best pilots into the battle. Like all human pilots, he had been trained to think creatively, to adapt to any situation, to find victory where others saw only defeat. The dark ships turned to face the human fleet, probably expecting another group of orderly aliens who fought by established rules. Instead, they encountered something they had never seen before. Warriors who had learned to fight in the darkness and had grown strong in the abandonment. The battle lasted 6 hours. Human ships took terrible damage, but they kept fighting. When their weapons failed, they rammed enemy vessels. When their engines died, they used their remaining power to launch boarding parties. When all else failed, they turned their ships into guided missiles and took enemy vessels with them. The dark ships had superior technology, but they couldn't adapt to enemies who refused to die quietly. They had probably conquered a dozen civilizations, using fear and overwhelming force. But humans had already survived the worst thing that could happen to them. They had been abandoned by their protectors and left to face the universe alone. They had not only survived, they had thrived. When the last dark ship was destroyed, the Karathi elder appeared on the communication screen again. His crystal body was dim with exhaustion, but his voice carried something that sounded like wonder. "Why?" he asked simply. "Why? Did you come? After what we did to you?" Taman looked out at the stars that his people now called home. Because that's what humans do. We help people who need help, even people who don't deserve it. He paused, then smiled. Besides, someone had to teach you what abandoned children become when they grow up. The galaxy belonged to humanity now. Not through conquest, but through something much more powerful. The refusal to become the monsters that had abandoned them.